How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today we've got a bit of a big one. That's what she said. And yeah, we're going to go and do rail trail. I'm going to go and take these three trucks, so the P512 PF, the new Paystar that's like the twin steer, and the big fat BOAR thing. And yeah, like I say, rail trail. So I've got to go and deliver 2 lots of medium logs and 4 lots of long logs to the railway station. So that's why I wanted to do this mission. Overall, this video, yeah, I'm pretty happy with. It's a good chance to test all 3 of the new vehicles. I also take the Dolphin for a little test. You can see there's various log stations dotted around the map. Some of them seem to have unlimited cargo, like, or logs, say, like, yeah, it just doesn't have a number next to it. Some of them seem to be limited, and so yeah, eventually they will run out again, some of them, and you'll just kind of have to move around. As well, the logs, like, I've now got this Paystar set up. That's the first one we're going to be testing. And one thing I do like about this Paystar is because it's a very long truck, I'm still able to fit like the logging crane on it, and then you can have this set up to grab the long logs, or you can also still have a saddle high or a saddle low. Oh, I don't know if it's got both saddles, but you can have a saddle on it, so you can have full-on semi-trailers as well. It could also hold, like, instead of the logging crane, you could have a van body add-on. So then you've got, yeah, various supplies and then a saddle on top of that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's one of the more unique trucks in terms of setups. So I'm just testing it now. I suppose the main one to compare this to really is the twin steer. You can see, by the way, I drew a line on the map. I mean, we're just going down the road, one of the nearest login stations. I wanted to see how this thing fares climbing up here. It does feel like a little bit of the twin steer magic going on. It's motoring up here kind of nicer than I thought it possibly would. It's got smaller tyres. I think they're about 50-inch tyres, whereas the biggest ones you can get on the twin steer is 63-inch tyres. And yeah, someone was saying this doesn't feel quite as fast and punchy as a twin steer, which I agree, but I think to a degree the smaller tyres have the effect of, like, not so much as gearing it down, but it's just for, yeah, the same one rotation of a wheel, you're getting less distance out of a 50-inch tyre over a 63-inch tyre. And I think that's why the twin steer feels, yeah, very punchy and quick, because it's got the biggest tyres out of anything with a high range gearbox, so it goes faster for one revolution of the axle. There, by the way, yeah, I got a bit stuck on a rock. It's a little bit iffy, but nothing too bad. I've tried to cut this video down, obviously, as short as I can. I've left pretty much everything in, but there is the odd little bit I'll explain. I've just cut tiny bits out, because otherwise I can only edit a video up to an hour long when I'm doing it this way. So, yeah, the whole thing was like 65 minutes. So there's just a few boring sections that I've cut out that don't really make any difference, but like I said, 99% of it we're there, we're good. So anyway, pull up to the first logging station, and this one appears to just have unlimited logs, because normally where it says long and medium logs, under that it'd say 6 cargo left, for example. I like the fact that you don't have to be stupidly precise with lining the trailer up. One thing on MudRunner when you're getting logs, unless the trailer was parked perfectly in line with you, it'd say, nope, can't load the logs, but obviously being an off-road game and the trollish places that they allowed you to grab logs from, the chances of having your whole vehicle in a nice, perfect, straight, flat, smooth line was slim to none. So, yeah, it's a bit of a notorious thing. Everyone will remember from playing MudRunner that it was just, yeah, a pain. So at least in this sense, it almost kind of like you would pack the logs and it sort of almost glitch through the trailer a bit and slowly morphs its way. It sorts itself out. So yeah, that's nice. That's good news that they've kind of sorted all that out. So yeah, here we go. I mean, there's long logs. It's good to see them back in the game finally, in the franchise kind of thing. And yeah, I used to love delivering them logs back on MudRunner. And just overall, I mean, this was a nice truck. I'm glad I started off with this one. Looks pretty cool with the logs. Kind of suits the setup well. I like the fact that it's got this kind of trailer, but half of it is kind of attached to the truck, the other half is the trailer end, and they both rotate, so it behaves more like a semi-truck. Sorry, like a semi-trailer than those bloody dolly trailer things. And yeah, I mean, in this game, different to MudRunner, there's long logs and medium logs, so there's no small logs, which I'm fine with that, to be honest. Yeah, out of anything, obviously, if you're going to keep 2 of the 3, I'd rather it be the medium and long logs. Unlike MudRunner, they don't really count as points in this game, as a guy Justin Lynch was saying in the comments as well. They're it's just like long logs is long logs, medium is medium. They count as 1 cargo each. So right now I've got to deliver 4 long logs and 2 medium logs, and I wasn't sure, because I'm sure when you equip this trailer at the trailer store, it's got in little like written next to the trailer how many cargo it can carry, and I'm sure it said 2 cargo for this. So right now I was assuming that these long logs would count as 2 lots of cargo, so obviously I thought I'd have to deliver 2 lots of these, and then yeah, maybe with a medium they might just count them as 1, but I was pretty convinced at this point it counts these logs as 2. However, yeah, I'll break the surprise now, it doesn't. This is just 1 lot of cargo basically. And yeah, like I said, I got to do 4 runs, which, to be honest, the good thing and the bad thing, when I first realised that, I was like, oh no, because I didn't really want the thing to get too repetitive, where I'm basically just going to do the same journey 4 times. It worked out nicely on this situation, because I was able to test this, I was able to test the P512, the BOAR. I also, like I said, did a run with the Dolphin to the same place I've just gone now, and then I'm running it down to the railway, just to give like this kind of, yeah, see how this compares to the how the Dolphin was handling things. Dolphin's one of the best base truck games. Grab a bit of fuel on my way past. I think, yeah, this thing is a bit of a thirsty beast if I remember rightly. So you can see I'm at that crossroads now. I'm going to cut across here. That section of water there next to the lake was it's a bit of a tough spot, a bit of a slow one as well. I was crawling through there pretty slow the other day, so I think the footage of this one I do leave in, but I'm going to be driving through that water a few times tonight, so I'm just going to cut the middle out, because it literally is like 2 minutes of just pure squeezing the throttle, down in low range, diffs on or whatever, and yeah, slowly crawling along. I'm fine with that, because they've been pretty fair and balanced with this mission, sorry, not the mission, the maps in general, that there's still plenty of, yeah, tarmac roads. It's a nice enough flowing map, and then they've thrown a few awkward sections in like this, which I'm kind of cool with, because the alternative, well, you've either got just a purely easy map, which obviously would be a bit anticlimactic. You've got a purely difficult map, a bit more like flooded foothills and all that. Just, I don't know, yeah, I don't know if I want to say difficult, but just a bit trollish, slow, yeah. And that gets a little bit boring and repetitive. This map, I mean, there's ways around everything where you can mostly use tarmac roads, so if you just want a bit of a quicker run, you might have to go the longer route, but I'm fine with that. Or you can take the more direct route, and there's obviously a lot more risk and, yeah, slowness involved in the situation. And overall, I was pretty happy with what the Paystar's doing now, though, because I'll be honest, yeah, I wasn't having high hopes for this section. I drove through here the other day in the Dolphin, and it was struggling through here, but it was pretty busted up. I did reverse it out and fix the suspension, because that was all broke, so yeah, but I'd still, like, the Dolphin did drive through, but it was definitely pretty slow, and I was thinking in my own head, like, oh god, here we go, because again, the Dolphin's one of the better trucks in the game, so if that's struggling a bit, then a lot of other trucks in the game ain't going to like this section. But it was, yeah, good news at the Paystar. Although it's slow, I'm, again, fine with that in little bits, in little doses. Drop it down into low, stick the diffs on, and all-wheel drive. I nipped around earlier before I started this mission and grabbed some of the upgrades. Unfortunately, the 2 I bagged was the raised suspension and the all-wheel drive upgrade, which was the 2 I really wanted, to be honest. So yeah, as you can see, I've got all 5 axles being powered. And maybe that's a situation why this is feeling a little bit weaker than the Twin Stick. Not to say it does feel like a weak truck. I actually had a better overall feel for this truck today than yesterday. I thought it struggled a bit more with these logs, but it's doing nice. It's like, it's not, certainly not OP by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, it's not just feeling like it's not the right truck for the job. It actually handled it decent enough. But yeah, there's more axles to feed. So whereas the loaf has, the loaf, got loaf on the brain. The Twin Steer has to split its power if you got the all-wheel drive thing now between 4 axles. This is feeding an extra axle, so instead of each axle getting 25% like it does on the Twin Steer, or 50% if you don't have the all-wheel drive, this is now getting 20% to each axle. So it's just, yeah, it's dividing, it's diluting the amount of power, and I think that's why it might feel a little bit slower. Like I said, couple that with the smaller tyres, and I think that together. But I certainly, the way it motored up that first kind of muddy gully when I got the logs, in high range it got up there for the most part until I got stuck on a massive rock. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. I'm going to cut ahead here a tiny bit, just to basically in front of us. I was looping around the back here, as you can see, going to another log station. They've gone a little bit over the top with the amount of bloody tree stumps they're putting everywhere, so I tried to loop around the edge of them. Ended up getting, like, just in the very slow mud. This thing didn't get stuck, but it was just slow and boring. I was able to cut like another minute out, which like I said, I was running over the 60 minutes anyway, so I needed something had to go, and that was one of the bits. Yeah, stuck on a bloody log again. Again, just give us something in the game that can remove these bloody things. I'd happily, if that was just some random attachment you could get on your truck, and you could just drive around ripping tree stumps out, I'd happily spend... In a way, that'd be kind of cool, because then, this being a prime example, you could kind of pluck the logs out and make your own little pathways through heavily log-stumped areas. But again, it's probably, yeah, I won't hold my breath for them making that an option. But yeah, there's a few little places where I think they could have calmed down a little bit. Rockman as well. Rockman is definitely back. He's back from his holidays. He's back from the pandemic or something, but he's certainly been in charge of a few rocks. He's been scattering around the place. It's probably the same guy who's in charge of the tree stumps. Just likes to go a bit mad with them. So yeah, this thing, I mean, again, I've dropped it down to low. There's definitely times where I like the access to the 3 low ranges, but the high range is just too nice. It's too nice to give up. It's worth the sacrifice. It's worth going slightly slower in sections like this. It's certainly enough with just the medium low, like one version of low. If anything, the low often doesn't introduce enough revs to the situation. And a little bit later on as well, it's the P512 or the BOAR. I've got the fine-tuned gearbox in, so I'll give that a little test in. And overall, I mean, the good thing is I don't think it's a bad gearbox. It's still... I don't think it's going to become my new favourite. I still prefer the high range, but yeah, it's not just a complete waste, really. So yeah, drove around here, we'll grab this one. Again, you can see that's got 6 cargo left, 6 cargo left. What I didn't realise though, when I pack that, it drops to 3 cargo. So basically, which I will do soon, some manual loading with a crane, if you ask it to drop the logs in that little red section, you have to get 3 long logs or 3 medium logs, and each one counts as 1 piece of cargo. But once you load it into the trailer, you need to load 3 pieces to then click pack, and then it'll turn into this. So even though it says 6 cargo left, there's not 6 lots of logs, there's 2 lots of each basically, because it's 3 per set. Which is not the end of the world. It probably sounds a bit complicated when I'm explaining it then, but there's a bit of footage where it'll be easier. Yeah, fortunately there was like a little cut through down the rocks on here, and to be fair, for whatever reason, this section isn't trollish. I thought, oh, the Paystar suspension's doing pretty nice down there, but I drove a Dolphin down there later, and that took it pretty well as well. So for whatever reason, that section just doesn't smash you to pieces, which is pretty cool. It also shows that they know how to limit the ridiculous damage, because I think they've purposely turned it down on that section, because they've made it obviously like a rocky pathway. But I bet during when they were testing it, they were like, you can't get down here without smashing your truck to pieces. And then it looks like they've specifically just tweaked it for that section alone. So yeah, I wish they'd just tweak it for the whole bloody section. Well, not the whole section, just the whole game. So, logs number 2 done. And what I'm going to do at this point, what I was going to try... Again, I left this in just to show you reverse. I was just purely reversing, but eventually the trailer starts to turn. There's not... Well, I was going to say I could have started trying to turn to catch it. I was just at this point testing this to see what happens. If you ignore it, is it going to try and flip me over, which it did. I was a bit lucky there that I tipped and landed on the building. So yeah, you can turn into it and everything, but it often, once it starts going, it goes quicker than you can catch it up. You can see like now when it starts going, it's already now hit its limit and it's just kind of scraping backwards. For the most part, it's not a problem. At least now when you're turning into it, it does make reversing it round in some ways easier if you just want to do a U-turn. It kind of locks its way. Again, can you see with the logs where they've just gone, it's like, just calm down, man. Because now it just makes it awkward trying to cut across from this railway to that road without, yeah, catching on logs. Which, like I said, in real life, it just wouldn't be the case, because even if they did leave a log in the way, you'd have someone in the company who'd say, yeah, go down there with something. Something to rip that tree stump out of the ground, because it's getting in everyone's way. I remember years ago when me and my brother were doing landscape gardening, we got a job outside, like it was at some mansion basically, and they were changing the front gates of the driveway, and yeah, we had to remove like 2 posts that were from the old gates basically and put new posts in, and it was pretty handy, to be honest. We started digging and the ground was solid, and it wasn't that we knew we could have carried on and dug it, but it was just like, do we really want to? So we tied some rope to the old tranny van, tied it to the post, hit the throttle, then post whipped out like a beauty, and already had 2 nicely dug holes for us to put the new posts in, concreted them in. It was all done. It was just, yeah, that was a much quicker way. Saved ourselves about 2 hours of bloody digging. It was either that or the tranny van bumper was going to rip off, but that was a risk we were willing to take. So anyway, you can see I tried driving back up that rock pathway, but I couldn't get up with the Paystar, so I just reversed that to the side and parked it up for a second. Now this was a good excuse to bring the Dolphin that is able to have like that login, like the long login set up, so it's got sort of the cradle on the back of the Dolphin and then the trailer. Yeah, it was just a good reason, a good excuse really, to now send this one in on the same journey I did with the Paystar. Like I said, to a degree it's well, it doesn't feel repetitive so far, but that's what I mean, like I'm now going to drive to the same place again. But yeah, it was a good chance. I certainly know this is a pretty solid, decent truck, so we'll kind of see how it fares compared to the Paystar. And then yeah, this will be the 3rd set of logs, long logs anyway. And then I'll be using this again for the 2nd set of logs, and I'm going to try and climb up that pathway I just tried to climb with the Paystar. And then later on, obviously, I've got the 2 lots of medium logs that need taken. And for the medium logs, they don't fit on this setup. You need like the sort of log carrier carriage thing. So I'm going to take one with a P512 PF and one with a BOAR. And again, sort of see how it goes, see how they fare. I'm not going to come to this place every time. There's, when I get to the railway station, just south of that, sort of south and then to the left a little bit, there's another log station. And yeah, like I said, it's fairly close. It's another one with limited logs, but that's the one I'm going to send the BOAR and the P512 to. And for the most part, yeah, I mean, the Dolphin, it was staying in high range all the way up here until I caught the nose of the Dolphin. And to be honest, it's not been anywhere, like, bad enough to the point where it's annoying, but the Dolphin has been catching its nose once or twice on this map, because there is a lot of sections that just kind of have a quick little sharp dip, and it goes back up. So yeah, maybe in the future it'd be nice if it's about time they could do with adding like raised suspension to the Dolphin, to quite a few of the trucks really. I think by now, the amount of time the game's been out, I mean, to a degree, they've got our money off us now. We've paid for the game. Those of us that are still playing most likely have paid for the season pass as well. So they've got the money out of us, and we've been playing the game for a long time really. To be fair, this game's had a lot of sort of longevity to it. I've played it longer than I do some games, certainly. Yeah, but we've had it long enough, we've tried all the stuff, like they should just open up all the upgrades a little bit more, kind of like I said, raise suspension for everything, kind of let every truck have every type of tyre, and just kind of, yeah, let a little bit more freedom happen with the sort of what way we want to equip our trucks really. I was going to revert, I've just seen the trailer was about to swing that way easier, so I just corrected myself. I was like, sod it, I'll turn it this way instead. But again, you can see, once it starts going, it's kind of locked the trailer at that angle, but at least it's enough to where it's not trying to tip it, and it's kind of helping lever the back of the Dolphin around and all sorts. So all in all, they work pretty well together, and it does kind of help to be able to just reverse them. But as I said, the trailer will just start turning kind of quicker than you can catch it up with a lot of the trucks. So if it starts going in the wrong place, where you're now going to get caught in a load of tree stumps and stuff, it can be a little bit awkward, but I managed to avoid that for the most part. A little bit stuck there. I believe it was the nose again of the Dolphin that I caught more than anything, but there's various tree carcasses kind of lying in this little gully, so flung a winch out and we grabbed it and we're all good. And yeah, we're ticking along down here fairly nice. It is a decent enough pace. I've managed to get it back into high, but yeah, it just won't last long really. It didn't really with the Paystar either. That was still able to get into high for little places down here, I believe. But yeah, there's a lot of big rocks and bumps and all sorts. It doesn't allow for a very smooth run, so you're inevitably going to like jolt the ground, lose all your speed for a second, and then just the nature of high range in this game, it yeah, sort of cuts the power out. So what I could have done really, could have stuck a goddamn professional on the roof. But at least for like this mission, I just wanted to. That's why I've not got loafs loaded left, right, and centre as much as you certainly know I'm good for it. I certainly do enjoy taking my loafs with me. But yeah, I just wanted to have like a bit of a fair base run between the Paystar, the BOAR, and the P512, and then like I said, this was kind of a good barometer as such, because I know what this is like. We all kind of know this is a solid truck from back in the day in this game, in the base version game. So I don't know why this section here, this died in high range, and this rarely does. If anything, this thing normally wheel spins more than cuts out in high range, but it did it to another truck yesterday to me, and I think somewhere else in this video. It's like that section zaps the power out of you or something, or it's just something about it that the trucks don't seem to like. Maybe there's like a little bit extra terrain resistance and it's overpowers the high range, because yeah, for the most part it normally doesn't make a difference. So when I cut down there, swing through, grab some fuel. Again, even if you've nearly got a full fuel tank, it's always good practice to just grab some fuel, just in case. You never know. I've had it before where I've grabbed fuel where I didn't really need it. I might have only grabbed an extra 20 litres, but then 2.5 weeks later I may have abandoned that truck somewhere in the middle of nowhere, be heading past with a loaf or something, and it's like, oh, 20 litres is pretty bloody handy. That'll keep the loaf going for like another year. So again, with this section, I'm going to cut forward in a minute, because I was able to cut like a minute 20 out. You can see, low range, this thing's got diffs always on and everything anyway. It's just creeping this slow, and that's about all there is to it. This one was near enough getting stuck. I started flinging out. It's funny with these winch points, as I was saying, I plucked a few trees out of there, but then I was able to winch to that I thought, and you can see, right, it's anchored in the ground, it's pulling me forward. Suddenly it fires out, fired a bush into me. What the hell's going on there? I've fired things into a bush before, but I've never fired a bush into me. That's like Kama Sutra 2.0 going on. So yeah, we've got a free bush though. I suppose that's not a bad thing. And yeah, at least, well, I did get a little bit of help, I suppose, off winching off that. I believe there's loads of rocks and that under there, so if you end up getting caught on a rock, like, yeah, that just slows you down a bit extra. For the most part, I believe most of the time this thing could drive through there slowly. If I started jiggling the steering and all sorts as well, I probably could have just got myself loose, but yeah, it was just a good excuse to see what the winch points are saying around that point, see if any are actually viable. And yeah, like I said, that tree hung into the ground very well, but then it eventually got plucked out. So when all I did was cut out there, I just turned the Dolphin round, so I'm coming back out the railway station the same way I just went in. Again, they have to fence it off with logs. There's my Paystar. This is that big long kind of rock path. Well, it's a pretty quick way, to be honest, up to this log station, which is a bit of a shame, because I believe the one up here has got, yeah, like a limited amount of cargo. It's only had 6 of each, which is basically 2 of each. And last time, I think the Paystar got stuck about here, whereas the Dolphin, it still managed to creep a little bit further, got to about here and it got a little bit wedged, but in the end I kind of rolled back a little bit, took a bit of a better angle, because as I look round, it's more, well, the left tyre as we're looking at it now, but the right tyre was kind of hooked on that rock. Scooted over to the left, keep it pinned, fingers crossed. I'm telling you, it's underrated. It needs precision when you can just floor it and shout power. And yeah, it's a bit sketchy up there. If I'm honest, it appears this rock section is kind of an easier way to go down. It's potentially more hassle than it's worth trying to go back up there, but again, the Dolphin's pretty solid, pretty good at climbing. It's got the 4 axles, so it's got 8 wheels for grip. And again, grab them logs. I assume now that place there is empty of long logs, because I've got 2 lots from there now. And you see, again, turning it round, it's sort of, yeah, you've not got a lot of say in it, but at least it doesn't now start trying to tip when it's, if it kept trying to tip when it was fully locked, it'd be a nightmare, but for the most part it just kind of helps hinge you around. And you see, flying down here now, it wasn't damaging this suspension either, which is a bit notorious for taking damage, so they must have toned it down in that section. However, got a bit of a dodgy bounce, the back of the trailer started to go and it tipped me. Oh no. See, this is where if I had a loaf on me, I'd have been fine. But fortunately, I just parked this thing at the bottom of the hill, which worked out pretty nicely. Come on, Dolphin. Get him back on his wheels, and yeah, kind of forced upon me, but this is a chance to show you a little bit of the crane. I've edited some of it out, because to be honest, it was my first ever go on this crane anyway, and it's a little bit fiddly. There's a few things, apart from the fact that I'm basically an amateur at this crane again, there's also a few little things that would be nice if they could tweak. I mean, basically, when I'm going to grab the log, unless you grab it perfectly in the centre, it wobbles a lot off balance, and it kind of tips up on its own end and all sorts, and it made it a bit of a pain in the arse to try and load it into the trailer. For some reason as well, it rotates that crane head the opposite way to when you press the buttons. The nice thing about it, it rotates it quite nice and quickly, unlike when you're craning scouts onto trucks and that, and it rotates at like 0.5 millimetre a year. But yeah, you'll see now, as I sort of go round and I'm trying to rotate it, it just stands the bloody log up in the air, and it's like, well, that's not really that useful to me, game. And again, now, the dots, though, that appear, they're a bit iffy. They're a little bit bugged. Not completely, but you can see, look, the dots jumping around, and it's like, how am I supposed to see where the middle of the log is when the dot's jumping all up and down the log and to the left, to the right? Do the hokey cokey, all sorts of stuff, but it ain't telling me what I need to know. So that was log number 1, kind of on the trailer, but I've also got it wedged under my crane legs, which didn't really help the situation. So I was going to try and jump in the Dolphin, just straighten things up a little bit if I could. What I didn't want it to do was kind of stick the log in the crane legs and drag it off the back of the trailer, but fortunately, bit of jiggling and it rocked its way in there. Now there is a little green dot above the log, which implies that it is actually officially accepting it as like that would do. But like I said, if I believe I did there actually, clicked pack logs, and it said not enough logs. So like I said, for one lot of cargo of logs, you've got to have 3 individual logs. So then when it says at one of those log stations 6 cargo, yeah, it's 6 logs, which only equals 2 cargo. Again, apologies if I've probably just made that sound even more complicated than it needs to be. Well, this time I was fortunately able to grab both logs, which was a nice start, but then it was confusing me where you press the opposite buttons to make them rotate, so I sent it the wrong way there. It's also I like it, but it was a little bit quick at rotating them. I wasn't quite used to how keen it is on flipping them. But again, in the long run, now, like, once you're used to it, I'd rather it's quicker than painfully slow. So, cut a little bit out, but just jiggling around. Eventually, we got the log on there, but then you can see, look, the back bloody arm carriage bar things on the trailer is completely twisted in an awkward way, where it's now not cradling my second log. Sounds like something you'd say. So, I was pretty happy, considering that was my first ever attempt. I used the crane, kind of nudged it around. It tried to go back a bit, but at least it's better than it was. And yeah, you can see now, even after a minute or so, I'm starting to get a bit more used to the crane. It feels accurate enough. It's got pretty decent grip on the arms, for the most part. So I was looking at that dot, but look, again, the dot keeps jumping around, so it's like, how the hell am I supposed to know where the middle of the log is? I just think they should probably give you a little bit more leeway. Like, maybe they should weight the logs in the middle and not so much weight each end, so even if you grab it slightly off centre, it doesn't do too much flopping around and tipping up on its end. Because like I said, along with the camera angle and everything, it just can get a little bit chaotic, especially when I'm pushed up like in between those cliffs almost. That sort of jerks the camera around a lot anyway, so... But for the most part, have a little play around with it and you kind of get used to it. That's definitely what she said. Yeah, one green log, 2 red logs, so it's saying they're not properly packed, basically. So I did have a little go with the cranes scooting them forward, but in the end I decided to give it a chance, drive forward with the Dolphin, slam the handbrake on. They skidded forward only a tiny bit, but that was enough, and it accepted it again. I like the fact that it's not too moany about getting the trailer exactly centred and everything. And you see, just logs, tree stumps in the way, so I thought, right, I'll follow this little railway section down and cut over. Then of course there's some random yellow railings blocking me. It's like, Christ, game. You always have to find stupid little ways to make it more awkward than it needs to be. And to be fair, I mean, I'll walk right into the trap every goddamn time. They see me coming a mile off. So finally, that's 4 out of 4 big logs done. And yeah, they were pretty cool, to be honest. Overall, they're pretty well balanced cargo. They don't feel ridiculously heavy, but at the same time, yeah, they're definitely not light. So next up, P512. Yeah, I've got a logging crane, and that's the medium log carriage. There's the horn. It's not the worst horn, to be honest. It's probably the best of the 3 horns, but still not great. So I'm going to go for this log station just south. You can see the railway there is just above me, so that's basically where I've got to head to anyway. And again, I just cut that little section out. It's just me drawing the line. So I'm going to drive essentially the same way through the railway station, though, out the back. And yeah, we'll go and get some medium logs. I'll stop for a second there. I was just thinking of, have I put the right tyres on? But I believe this is the truck that you only get one choice of tyre anyway. Yeah, this is the one. I've got the fine-tuned gearbox on, so I thought I'd give that a go. I mean, as we're going now, first impressions, it's motoring along pretty nicely. It's got 4 out of 4 gears, so it must be more based on, say, the off-road gearbox on the high range, which makes sense because it's also got the 3 low-range options, which that's what you get with the off-road. The high range, a little bit slow, but I have to say, it feels better than what I imagine the off-road high range would be, so that's a good start. And yeah, in auto, even for 4 gears out of 4, it motors along pretty nicely. I believe this has got 58-inch tyres. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I am. So yeah, at least they're a half decent size. You get, again, because it's bigger tyre diameter or whatever, you get more distance out of 1 revolution, which sort of translates as a good thing in this game. Which I had years ago. I'll mention it a while back, but the first car I ever owned, a Ford Escort, and when I bought it, it already had 17-inch alloys on it. And when driving it, the thing was just horrifically slow. Like, it felt broken levels of slow. And just after I sold it, someone said to me, like, basically they'd owned quite a few Ford Escorts, and they said, yeah, because you had a 17-inch tyre on it, you basically geared the car up, and because the engine didn't have enough guts to it to handle that geared up tyre, it felt really sluggish. So if I'd put smaller alloys on it, it would have probably set it about back to normal. But in this game, it doesn't really work. Like, if you're almost gearing it up by putting bigger tyres, it doesn't really factor that into, like, making the engine more sluggish. It just, in this game, it seems to be, yeah, the bigger the tyre, the more rotation, the more distance you cover in one rotation, which translates to just a higher top speed, and it doesn't really seem to sacrifice your torque or anything either way. You're only talking fairly minor differences, but it clearly does show a bit, because I think everybody's in agreement the twin steer is pretty rapid in a high range, and like I said, it's got the biggest tyres that you can have the high range gearbox with. Well, unless maybe there might be some mods that now offer even bigger tyres than that. And again, cutting through here, I mean, to its credit, it did actually manage to crawl along, even though it has no all-wheel drive. I've got low-range diffs on. This is the fine-tune, so I can adjust it down to 3/4. And yeah, I mean, overall, in some ways it's a little bit gimmicky, but to be honest, I'd probably use this over the off-road, because there's no real loss to using it. I mean, again, for the most part, you're just going to shove it in high-low, because that's the nicest amount of speed and everything, but when you're in such a boggy section like this, going up to high-low doesn't always give you more speed. It just ends up wheel spinning a bit more. So as you can see now, I'm sat in medium-low, and there was a few times where I was in, like, you know, half and half and slightly down towards the low end. So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. It's another option in the game. It's something you can, well, yeah, fine-tune, be more precise with, so why not? It's certainly not a bad thing. And people have been saying, like, for me to kind of, do I think this fine-tuned gearbox ends up giving you more top-end power in the low-range gears and possibly the high-range than the off-road gearbox? And yeah, I think it probably does. And as I mentioned before, I believe there is rev caps in this game. I've pretty much proved it as far as in various other videos, just with like you can see the rev range it allows you to do in various gears, and they're very strict on the rev caps in the off-road gearbox. And because this gearbox is kind of a little bit bridging the gap between the off-road and the high range, I believe they've probably been a bit more lenient on the rev caps, which means at the top end in the high, low and the high range, it allows you to get the full amount of power, because that's the thing with the low ranges, they tend to be rev caps more than their own separate gears. And in this game it sort of feels like when you're whistling right at the top, you know, when you're gunning the engine and the revs are nice and high, you've got a lot of power in your motoring along. If you're kind of cock blocking a motor's ability to rev up, you're not getting all the power out of it. So sometimes them rev caps can translate to being like a power cap. And yeah, for the most part, I reckon first impressions, kind of a little bit of testing, so I'm not going to say 100%, but I'm pretty confident that they're right. Like, the rev caps are more lenient in this gearbox, which is a good thing. It actually, I mean, yeah, I was using it. It was, I would consider using this. It felt certainly like a pretty decent replacement for the off-road gearbox. To a degree, it sort of makes the off-road gearbox a bit redundant, because it basically offers everything that does. You've got the fine-tune options, and like I said, possibly more freedom with the rev caps and everything. So yeah, my off-road gearboxes will probably be gathering even more dust. So anyway, drove this thing down to the railway, cut through there. You can see it's a bit weird why there isn't just a nice little road going out the bottom of the railway station. So I kind of had to smash through a fence, cut through some trees. This section here is a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. This thing wasn't too keen on it. I had to use the winch a couple of times. I appreciate it, so I drive other trucks through there. Well, I drive the BOAR through there later, and yeah, that little section's definitely no joke. And that was the only section that really gave this thing too much hassle. It made it surprisingly well through that water section, which I was pretty happy with. But it's, I mean, it's an off-roading game. There's never going to be a situation really where at least the option of all-wheel drive wouldn't be a nice option to have. And if it literally had all-wheel drive on now, and it was an option we could turn on, we'd all turn it on, because it just makes more sense. But all things considered, for a non-all-wheel drive vehicle, it's, yeah, not doing too bad. Like, that's sort of where I'm up to really with the trucks at the moment. The Paystar does seem pretty cool. I could see me getting some use out of that. This thing, yeah, I'd sort of say not bad. Definitely not one of the best trucks in the game or anything like that. I still think I prefer the P512. Can you see when I clicked those logs, like it now says 3 cargo left. It obviously went 654 and then to 3. So you have to choose 3 logs to load into the trailer to count as one set of cargo. Back on MudRunner, it used to be 2 large logs counted as a set of cargo, 3 medium or 4 small. On this one, they've just done it as like 3 large, 3 medium. They both, yeah, they count as one set. And I was trying to be a little bit cheeky here, trying to position my crane. I was trying to grab all 3 logs at once, just to save me do like 3 missions. And again, you could just about get away doing the same on MudRunner back in the day, which I also tried to do. The grabbing speed is a bit like one of those arcade machines. It purposely like was weak, made me drop the toy on purpose. Wasn't too impressed about that, but I went for it again because it's a definition of insanity. Do the same thing, expecting different results, but it worked. Proof insanity can be good. Now I didn't really let go of the logs there, I'll be honest. They kind of slipped out, so I got a bit lucky that I was already lined up with the trailer. They all fell on, they all landed in place. Again, it's still more lenient than MudRunner was with just allowing you to pack them, so it was all good news. Got them packed and we're off. And again, I mean, for the most part, it's just this one section coming up that I had to winch through on the way up that's a bit of an awkward sod. High range is quite nice, again, even in this fine-tune gearbox. I know it's probably more in line with the off-road version than the high range, but because of the bigger tyres, it balances out, it all sort of works out that as long as it's not slow to the point, it gives me that kind of impatient sort of, oh god, I wish I was going faster feeling, and it's, yeah, that's the main thing it's got to pass. Otherwise I'll just get bored of it. See, now though, I was supposed to turn right here and I just overshot it a tad. Because there's no power in the front wheels, I'm reversing that's pushing the trailer, and the dolly axle is kind of tucked under itself, but the front wheels were turned, but there was no power going to them, so it wasn't pushing my nose round, so then I had to do a bit more sort of awkward reversing. It's just situations like that where all-wheel drive would certainly be a benefit. And right now, by the way, you'll see in a second, fortunately the game just starts saving, but I right now am going into high-low, sorry, and because it's so slow climbing up, and by the time it got in and I looked back, I'd already started tipping. It was fully my fault. Luckily, I turned the game off and loaded it back up, and I loaded like 2 seconds before I tipped, which was pretty convenient. Again, fully my fault. It's just that extra slowness on the fine-tune, I was looking at the fine-tune to see when I'm actually fully in high-low. And yeah, that was just, I took my eye off the truck long enough that by the time I looked back I was already tipping. It was too late. And as you can see, I mean, it's really just not happy about this section. I don't think a lot of things would be too happy about this section. It's a bit of a troll. It's got very squishy, spongy mud. There's a lot of pretty big rocks kind of all sank and stuck in there. There's also various tree carcasses laying around that, as it does with the game, you kind of get caught on them. If you ram them enough, they sort of then eventually, not glitch, but they just kind of phase through the map and get out your way. Luckily, in the end, I did a winch from the trailer at the back to the log near me, which is kind of pulling the trailer towards me, which inadvertently pushes me forward. So yeah, that worked out, and eventually there is a tree stump. One time a tree stump actually came of any use, and yeah, flung a winch out to that. And I mean, stuff like this, overall the maps are fairly nicely balanced, so it's not the end of the world. If they release this kind of truck on Imandra or Flooded Foothills or Big Salmon Peak, it'd be a bit of a disaster, a bit of a waste of time. But considering in this whole journey from the garage to the railway to those logs and back, this is the only section that really gave me any issues. Yeah, for the most part it was relatively plain sailing. So it's one of them really. I mean, you just have to judge it a mission by mission basis. If you see a mission that's going to be a bit of a nightmare, I certainly won't be yeah, this thing won't be high on the list. Right now I was honestly contemplating just going to get the dolphin and towing it out, but then at the last day I just sort of looked round, tapped the auto winch just to see if there was anything in front. It reached for this log tree stump, and yeah, I was like, sod it then. If we can just get out of that boggy section, and then it's obviously the way the game's coded. As soon as I get onto this bit, you can just see suddenly the capability, the grip and everything all just increases to a level where it's like not too bad. But yeah, the P16 has obviously got has no all-wheel drive, but it's just a big hefty beast, that thing. It's so heavy and meaty and massive. Yeah, that's what she said. It plants you down into the ground and it creates its own grip from its own weight. This thing slightly sitting in between, where it's sort of like, yeah, it's not got the same bulky weight that the P16 has. So it's struggling to have enough weight on its back end to actually plant those rear tyres in to get the grip in the first place. But overall, I don't think the truck's a complete disaster anyway. Like I said, that section was a bit of a troll. So, that's medium logs number 1 done. And as you can see, yeah, this mission, certainly not the quickest of ones, but it's good though. I was enjoying it. I've been enjoying this gameplay more than I have a lot of stuff in SnowRunner for a while. Well, when they added Phase 2, I enjoyed some of the missions, and I did them, made videos on them and all sorts. Then they had the big contracts that felt very grindy and sweaty and repetitive, and they were taking bloody hours. I didn't even get started on most of them because I heard that there was a glitch with the like, it said 15 cabins you need instead of 3, so I skipped it. By the time they patched it and sorted it, I was just kind of like, well, I don't really want to do them. I wasn't that keen on the map. I was a bit bored of them by then. Fortunately, they released mods at sort of the same time, so then they just kind of distracted me and tided me over. Now we're on this. Yeah, I like the look of these two maps. I actually do. The second map's definitely growing on me a bit as well. Now I've uncovered it all and there's more little secret lanes to scoot around the map, and that is quite nice overall. So I'm certainly looking forward to doing the missions, the contracts, all that sort of stuff on these maps. And yeah, it's been nice to see like the logging back as well, because that's just pretty cool anyway. It's like a feature from the Mud Runner game. Well, to a degree. I mean, it's the same with the Mud Runner game. The whole point of this game is to just give you an excuse to have various trucks and drive them around in the off-road terrain. Obviously, back in the day, Mud Runner, yeah, the logs were just an excuse to make you have to go over here and over there and blah blah blah. And they've certainly upped the game in SnowRunner because there's a lot more variety of cargo. Obviously, in Mud Runner, it was pretty much just logs and that was it. And it kind of got boring after a while. Like I said, each mission you did, it didn't really matter because it was just an excuse to drive there. But once you'd completed everything, there wasn't a lot of replayability in Mud Runner, because then it was just like, oh, I've got to take the same logs to the same place again. And yeah, but still, it's nice to see them back in this game. And anyway, now I've been rambling on a bit, but yeah, we've got the BOAR, got a goddamn professional with us. You knew he was going to make an appearance at some point, and got another medium logging trailer. And again, this is this section. It's just a bit slow. Have a little look in the interior while I was waiting. That's why I've left a little bit more of this one in. That is what you want to see out the back window. The goddamn horse of a vehicle. Yeah, interior looks pretty cool though. Again, just kind of slowly crawling my way towards the horizon. A little bit bored looking around. This is normally the point where I'll yeah, have a quick flick through YouTube, see if there's a video I can just stick on quickly that'll distract me for a few minutes. So again, I'm going to cut ahead now just to further save like probably half a minute. And I mean, it was crawling this slow all the way, low range, diffs on, all-wheel drive on, and yeah, it made it through, so it was a good start. I mean, the first little section where I drove from like the garage to say the fuel station, this was feeling quite nice. It had a pretty decent pace to it. It wasn't smashing itself to pieces completely. It certainly clearly weighted a bit heavy at the front end, but it wasn't to an annoying degree. And yeah, it is a bit of a heavy, bulky beast, so it does plant itself well enough. It's got decent enough sized tyres on it, all the rest. It's got the chains and everything, so it was going alright. And there's the horn. Yeah, not amazing. It's a little bit high pitched and squeaky for something like this. Needs a horn more like the P16 again. Like I said, the P16 horn's so good, it's like therapy. One press and you feel better. Well, not that I'd know. Never been therapy. Sod that. I ain't paying someone to tell me all my own problems. Like, why are you angry? Because I've just paid you 50 quid to ask me why I'm bloody angry. Yeah, loaf had a bounce, he flew off. The saddle I put on it, it's kind of, the loaf sits quite nicely on it, but to be honest, I wasn't really paying attention. I dropped the hammer, we flew in there, and the loaf bounced off, but funnily enough, you see, look, as soon as the loaf falls off, problems begin, because we haven't got a goddamn horse or a vehicle helping us. And it's definitely not catching on the loaf now. I've nudged plenty of loafs out of the way, and they practically offer no resistance. This truck is a big, fat, heavy, bulky beast. Again, this section is definitely a troll, and a lot more annoying and slow and disastrous than it might look on the face of it. Fortunately, that tree kind of lifts up, but it's locked in place, so we're able to creep forward about as quick as it'll hoover the winch in, to be honest. That's about all I can manage. And yeah, things weren't going too well. I've got to disconnect from that log either way, because if I carry on, I think I'll just hit it and it'll automatically like disappear and morph through the map anyway. So, I mean, again, as usual, this is why you get yourself a goddamn horse or a vehicle. Options, people. That's what a loaf brings you. I mean, just champion. He's straight on it. To be honest, I was leaning a little bit here, but I was like, sod it, we'll give it a go. Got the advanced winch, it was pretty convenient. Trying to dig a little bit of a loaf hole, but the main thing was, you can see, I glitched it kind of, or not glitched, but bounced it over that tree. It made the tree go out the way, which is good. So I just cut a bit. I was only faffing around for 10 or 20 seconds. In the end, I was winched to this, but because it's got engageable diffs and all the rest of it, while I was in the loaf winching to this, it would have just been in auto with no diffs on, and it's not as good. So I switched to this, where I'm able to drive this and set it how I want it, low range, diffs on, all-wheel drive, all the rest of it, and just stick a winch to the loaf, which has got diffs and all-wheel drive always on, so that's still going to be in like maximum loaf mode. And well, I mean, look at it. It's a mobile winch point. I popped it in the middle of the map where I wanted to throw a winch. It's like a land anchor. I stuck a winch on him and now I'm away. And then now, because I need the loaf to move out of the way, I just stick another winch on him and he starts driving forward. He is clearly pulling me up this hill like a goddamn professional. And we're away. Crisis averted, all because we brought a horse of a vehicle with us. And that is why you get yourself a loaf. But again, you can see that section is just a bit of a pain in the arse. Stick a winch on the loaf, we ain't leaving a horse behind. I've winched him backwards, but like that, we'll keep an eye. Keep an eye on the rear of the convoy, make sure no bears try and sneak up or anything. A little bit of a whinge there, it didn't like high range for some reason. But yeah, again, once we're past that annoying section, you can kind of see that it motors along for the most part. So yeah, the 3 new trucks they're added, like, I certainly don't think they're terrible or anything. If you compare it to stuff like the Warthog and Taz, I think they're fun, but they're pretty useless really, because they're just too light. They get stuck so easily in deep terrain because there's just no weight to them. So for the most part, they're a bit of a gimmick, or you might stick a repair van body thing on it and use it for that. But for the most part, I don't use Taz and Warthog all that much. Yeah, at least these trucks are bulky enough. I like the bigger trucks than that in this game anyway. Caught on a bloody tree stump. So, yeah, I still think they're more use than no use, but they're clearly not the best. They're not like the new daddies in the game or anything like that. Get the loaf hoovered up. So you get him tucked in nice and tight at the back of the trailer. Now he won't catch on anything. He knows what he's doing. Again, that horn is a little bit meh for a truck this big. And we're away. To be honest, if there was a way to just motor through the trees, see, if all trees were killable, I'd just go flat out now. I'd start smashing trees out of the way. I don't even care if realism is being achieved at that point. Me and these trees have got history. At least I remembered the corner this time. And straight away, yeah, it's not too keen on it. Like I say, I'm going to need to take this truck on some of the other maps, because this map is new to me. I can't say for certain if this area is just... I believe it is particularly trollish, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know what it is relative to all the other trucks. There's certainly plenty of other areas in different maps that I've taken plenty of other trucks through, so I'll know kind of how they'll handle. I'll do a review very soon as well on the Paystar, the BOAR and the P512, so I'll be taking them around all the various courses and testing them out basically. I used to leave the reviews for like a week, because I wanted to get used to the trucks, but I kind of noticed halfway through, I think when I was doing like the Warthog and all that stuff, that I may as well just do the... by the time I've got the footage for the review videos I do, I've got a pretty good idea of what the trucks are doing by then. It's just because I already know what that's like relative to all the others. So yeah, I'll get on with that pretty soon. And you can see here, I mean, this thing was absolutely just struggling through, even though it has got all-wheel drive, diffs on, all the rest of it. Still bringing the horse with us. But again, the loaf, I can guarantee the loaf ain't making hardly any difference anyway. If a truck's held up by the fact that it's towing a loaf, then the truck hasn't got a lot of excess power to begin with. But I do find though in low range there's a couple of times where a couple of the wheels would jiggle in a little bit to where, again, maybe the rev caps are just a little bit too keen on this and it's just not quite feeding enough power in. And obviously the off-road, or I suppose now the fine-tune, it'd be quite nice having the 3 low range options, but I'm wheel spinning, so I don't even know if the low range options would make any difference. I think overall now it's just the sheer weight of my truck. I don't know, it's just sinking, and yeah, it's slowly crawling. Well, I don't know, because like I say, it's got a lot of weight, but it's not necessarily translating to mega amounts of grip at the minute. But they are kind of probably all-terrain chained or something. They're certainly not the mud chained, so I'm assuming they're not quite as good as yeah, the mud chained. So apart from this one section, but I'm still happy with it because it was a chance to yeah, put this and the P512 for its paces, but neither of them were really happy with that section at all. Also, at some point I might have to drive like the Paystar up there and maybe the Dolphin as well. I've certainly cleared out, well, I've cleared out the medium logs from there. There might be sets of long logs up there as well. So yeah, maybe at some point I will try the Paystar and the Dolphin up there, just because again, it sort of lets us all know how they're behaving relative to each other. Just that's one thing, like, why I like doing the same tests in the review videos, because it's one thing to be able to see what a truck does and it's like, that's good, but what does that mean relative to all the other stuff? So it's nice to yeah, have like the same areas to compare. So again, there's not really a proper road going this way back into the railway, so we'll invent our own road, and we are about done. It's probably one of the longest videos I made. It might not be quite as long as the loaf video, but let's be honest. But the loaf deserved far more than an hour. Done. Not too bad on the payout. I mean, it probably took me about an hour and a half, at least 2 hours maybe, to do all this, but again, it was pretty cool. I probably could have just gone back to some of the easier login stations over and over again, but I tried to mix it up a little bit. But yeah, the XP doesn't really bother me anymore. Money's not that important either, to be honest, but still, it's nice to have it. Job done. And then last little bit, I'll just show you my professional reverse parking. If in doubt, just ram it harder. It'll get him one way or another. It's definitely what she said. And yeah, like I say, that's about it for today. So it's been a pretty good test. The login's looking pretty good. I'm enjoying the map so far. Yeah, these trucks they're less than useless. I'll be using them, but I'll certainly be mixing and matching. But yeah, that's about it for today though. I hope you enjoyed. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to our Patreon members, and I'll be back soon.